Art or arse? That is the question. And why it's a question in what we do, or at least what I'm doing right now, is I'm working on Black Magic, a musical, as you probably know, and I'm now I've done a dialogue scene very badly, but that's another story. And it switches now to a music stage dance scene where three women are dancing with a dude who's recalling the memory of having an experience when he was younger. And art or arse? Well, I started with arse because I thought, well, I've not done this yet. I've not tried the NSFW or tried doing any of the sexy stuff with much. And I started by going through everything I thought I wanted to do for this video, writing it, putting it in a little text document, dumping all my inspired ideas for this scene that I was thinking of, and then I also added in 5 of my top music videos that I thought I wanted to imitate, emulate, or be inspired by, which were all arse type videos, Now, why I mentioned these is because the music is kind of pop folk with a gravelly baritone male vocal and then female singing, but it's also very intimate and it's also a sexy story in theory. So that's kind of why I went down that angle. And immediately, now, sorry, I missed one crucial part, which is what is in the background here. This is where I use LLMs and AI online, the super brain ones like ChatGPT or Claude, and I start a project in there, and then I use the free version, so it's fine. You get enough limits per day now, currently at least, to make good use of it. And I really highly recommend it, even for artists who are creative and don't need any help or think they don't need any help, because it will analyse your idea and very politely tell you why it's crap and how to do it better. And that's great, because I find humans, if a human tries to do that for me, I'll tell them where to get off. But AI, I accept it from AI, because AI is like an encyclopedia of knowledge on filmmaking, music video. You know the story of all that. But start it as a project. Don't just do it as a chat. And you can see I've got a few here from other things. But analyse your own idea with it and dump. This is what I do, and I'm going to actually do an ebook on this just to help people with the idea how to approach it, because sometimes I think people don't really know how to approach asking the questions. And basically all I really do is put everything I can think of. I'll sit watching TV thinking about my idea for an evening, put it all, however silly, however bizarre, however almost irrelevant, as long as it's to do with this music video I'm working on, I'll put it in there. And then, as you can see up there, I've fed that to ChatGPT. And the end result of this I'm looking for is shot list. And I've been doing this with all of my work, because at the end of the day I get a shot list out of the LLM that speeds up the process for me to then go through it and add my creativity in and remove the ideas I don't like I've been given. And I'm creative enough to not feel it's overly influencing me. I know exactly what I want already. But in this case, I wasn't really sure. And so I thought, I'll see what ChatGPT gives me as ideas. And so I did this, and it completely threw out a bunch of my ideas, took on a bunch of others, and then I kind of chatted with it for a bit and expanded into it. And what it actually does is it helps me get out of myself what I'm trying to do and get clear. And one of the best things it does is it'll give you one-liners. Like, this is a brilliant example. The lyrics appear to be about sex, but the emotional core is, I found a moment of acceptance, connection, belonging and freedom, and I spent the rest of my life unconsciously trying to get back there. That's a much stronger story. And when I read that, I had to actually sit and stare into space for 20 minutes while I contemplated the entire musical, not just even this song, because I'd missed that about why I wrote it. I knew that before, but I kind of forgotten because I went all down the art versus arse route. And there's so many people making arty crap at the moment, like one-off shots and thinking it's amazing, and it's AI. There's no such thing as art in AI in a funny way. You're just regurgitating collages of stuff. So I'm a little bit, this is one of the reasons why I spent the last year learning how to present dialogue in visual form, because but I used to just put arty stuff together back before AI showed up. And since AI showed up, and since everyone can now do everything at the touch of a button, I've kind of been loath to stick to the arty stuff at all, or my version of it, and instead gone very much forced myself into the dialogue-driven narrative that I believe is missing. So I've kind of, my whole thing, depending on how long you've been on my Patreon or hanging out following me at all, my whole thing has been dialogue drives the narrative. We have to get to the dialogue, and it's the thing missing from good AI, or AI being successful in the visual arena. But curiously on this one, I actually had to go back the other way and go, well, I've kind of realised now, I've been doing this for a year, trying to make dialogue driven narrative, very linear, structured story, and I've forgotten how to do art. And I was like, how do I do that again? So this line triggered it, and then I went into conversation with it. But at the end of the day, I came back out the other side, like about probably over the course of 24 hours, because a lot of things I need to I settle on, I sleep and it settles it, and I wake up and go, oh, no, I ain't doing that. Or yeah, that's a great idea. So I need to sleep on things. So that's why I tend to take a few days with ideas before I firm them up. And I haven't actually got to the shot list yet, not the CSV version of it, because what happened was, and this is an interesting thing, I've actually got a little list of notes I wanted to talk about. The difference between planning AI short films and AI music videos. Well, that's what I've just hit on, and I've realised how different the approach is, and you're actually trying to quantify that. AI short films, you need dialogue-driven narrative. You need emotion, and you need to not lose sight of that, which is something I talked about in the last video. But in music videos, you really need to get more arty, and you don't need to focus on the story when you're making the shot so much as wording that ChatGPT gave me and I really liked, but creating a palette of emotions, and then from that putting them together in families. So you've got families of different emotions, and then from that you use your palette to paint your picture, and that had happened in the edit. So what I had to work out was how I was going to actually do the shot list based on the fact that this wasn't going to be a linear structure, we begin here, we end here, but rather a family of emotions, palettes of, family A, family B, family C. And it's a really good idea, and it's a really good approach. And I actually have figured out, so we got families of emotions, A, family B. So what those A, B, C will amount to will be people, shots of people or scenes or whatever. So however you want to split that up. And in my case, family A is going to be the empty stage, which will likely be the beginning, but it also might end up being lots of cutaways from other instances. Family B is the three women, and family C is Sam, so one of the hookers, so the three hookers. And then a lot developed from that, but once I had that approach, now my brain was able to bring it all together and go, all right, so because I'm going to be using palette, the shots as palettes, I can actually now figure out what I'm doing, because I'm going to be more arty, and symbolism is going to tell the story, even though there's going to be cohesive threads to it. Whereas with all the dialogue, you have to approach it very differently, which is what I've been learning how to do all this year. So yeah, palettes of emotions in families. One other thing, when you do that, one of the mistakes, in my opinion, I see a lot of arty creative types make, is then going too far into the arty stuff and forgetting that they're in love with their own product. Like, your art may seem amazing to you, but whether that's going to seem amazing to other people, then again, you immediately need something to help present it, and you're kind of going to look for an overall conduit or something to hold it all together and also cohesively tie it all together. In my case, in this example, it's going to be a theatre stage. So, and why that works is because it allows all the things I want to incorporate to make sense, because you can have wild comings and goings. It's on a stage. The viewer will make sense of that. You can have a guy out in the audience on his own watching his memory happen on a stage. The audience will make sense of that. So the theatre and the stage are really going to help me be able to present all this kind of arty palette in a cohesive, connected way. Symbolism replaces narrative during shot building. Now that's an important part because, and I'd forgotten about that approach, which I used to take, because I replaced it with the opposite approach, which is the linear step 1, step 2, step 3 result kind of stage. And remembering it actually reminded me that I've done this a lot with old videos. Yeah, so the symbolism replaces the narrative approach for building shots. So that's kind of obvious, but yeah. Don't just follow the lyrics, discover the real theme beneath the lyrics. Now that's quite important. I've spoken about it before when I used to hang out with a cameraman friend of mine from Channel 4. He used to say, I used to bring him script ideas for porn films because he was working in that as well. And he just laughed me out of the room because I was trying to do music ideas, and he said, don't follow. It's really cheesy, and it's something it's just too much cheese if you try to follow the lyrics directly with the image. So don't just follow the lyrics, discover the real theme beneath the lyrics, and then let both the lyrics separately tell its own story, and the theme and the visuals and the symbolism sometimes juxtaposition it or conflict and be counterpoint to that storytelling, but usually it will kind of merge in and let the viewer put the two together. Art or arse appears again. It's like there's kind of got a few meanings in this case because, as you know, comfy UI and AI makers tend to focus on a lot of women's arses and boobs and sex. It's a pretty masculine obsessive scene we're in. I'm not a big fan of that in this context. I think it's quite immature from what I've seen of it, but you also get sucked into it because who doesn't like a good arse? But yeah, then there's also the complete other question of art or arse, as in, is art just crap? You know, arse, load of arse. And I do tend to, you know, that whole kind of New York style of art, I just go, oh, for fuck's sake, what a load of, you know, anal bollocks. So, but that's me. So the art or arse is the big question. But, you know, that also then, when you're cynic like me, an old dinosaur Gen X cynic like me, you lose the ability to be creative because you're so cynical of everyone and everything that you don't want to risk being targeted yourself. That's it, isn't it? So yeah, art or arse, that is the question. Work with the AI strengths instead of fighting the AI weaknesses. Now this is one of the reasons why I revisited ChatGPT, because one of the things, I gave it all the criteria, and in that criteria I also said what I'm working with, what tools I plan to work with, and what I can do and what I can't do. And it immediately agreed with me in saying, don't do everyone in the shot together. So I've got 4 people, which was challenging enough in that lift scene. And, you know, if you watch the last video, I actually achieved results with it and quite quickly. So I can do it. But I'm now looking at other stuff, which is like ripping dance moves off out of other videos and then applying that. And I found a way to do it to multi-people as well. But the amount of work it's going to involve is quite huge. And that was why I wanted to, you know, the whole aim here, as I say often and almost every video now, time plus energy versus quality. Like, I don't have much life left, so I've got to kind of cut down the time considering the amount of projects I want to get finished. So I need to get these done as fast as possible. And that means looking at shortcuts that people aren't going to notice. And this is, so another angle to this is reducing how much AI can mess up my plan by working with AI. What it can do currently at this current time, and especially what it can't do. And, you know, that's an ongoing research situation anyway, isn't it, as we know. The chorus engine concept, yeah, that's kind of, I touched on that just now, the thread, the cohesive thread. And the other thing that humans need, even if it's arty, whatever, is evolution of the story. So it's only a 5-minute music video, and people, when you'll find, as I did when I first came to doing AI music videos, I went, oh, that's only 30 shots in 5 minutes, it'll take me like a day, I'll be done. But actually in reality, that's a lot of shots and it's a lot of work. And 5 minutes is a lot of time to fill if you're trying to make it interesting, and especially music videos. Here's a trick: study other music videos by turning the sound off, and then you find it easier to watch it without getting drawn into it and sucked in. So you can start looking at the cut and the method and the speed of which of scenes change, trying to be wow, 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 is quite rapid in music videos, and you don't have that in dialogue. So there's you do need something cohesive. I'm getting off track. You need a cohesive concept that also evolves, that also repeats. We call it motifs or leitmotifs. I used it in my music production training, where you repeat things, and you know there's quite a lot of that has to go on in music. But then also the question of how much you don't want to do that. It's worth watching. I watched 2 videos in researching this that I would not normally watch, and they actually did change my approach. And I'm not a huge fan of either of them, but Madonna Frozen, watched it with the sound off, and that was interesting for the feminine aspect and the dark feminine aspect, which I'm obviously trying to portray and play with, but also hugely shifted my approach was REM, Losing My Religion. And it's a band I actually don't like very much at all, and don't like anything they produce, especially visually. It's like the Smiths. I'm just like, oh, this is, get it out of my face, nonsense. And REM are a bit like that for me, I'm afraid. You might be a big fan. But I'll give it to them. That video is all about religious symbolism, and there's not much flow to it, and he's just dancing about like a buffoon. But I kind of went, oh yeah, you can do this differently. So there's a lot of motifs and repetitive symbolism, themes in it. Music videos. Symbolism, not literal. It's a mindset. Get arty, not technical. Yeah, this is me, just notes to myself. You know, so I'm going to get arty. And then create 80 shots, not 30. So I was thinking initially A-roll, B-roll, C-roll, D-roll. And my idea would be, this is what I told to ChatGPT. I went, A-roll will be the main story, 3 women on a stage, a guy's watching his memory, talking about it. B-roll, the guy, his story thrown in, interspersed with it. C-roll, effects, funky stuff that I want to throw in over the top for the cutaways and cutaway shots. D-roll, I can't even remember what that was, probably just stolen stuff. Non-AI stuff that I'd butcher so badly copyright and IP won't matter. So, and what I ended up doing, because I went the palette of emotions approach, I've just got A-roll. So yeah, but 80 shots, because I'm going to take a huge palette and then go, I like that shot, that works here, and then just put it together that way. It's more like making a collage than a film. So that's another way, because this is all about getting your mindset so you can approach it, because it's very different, as I've said, which is the whole point of this long-winded conversation. Dialogue, narrative, linear-driven storytelling versus music video, and the difference, and what I had to put on to kind of deal with that. You need a structural approach, otherwise you're just going to go all over the place, or at least I do. The biggest takeaway, well, I just said it then, AI short films want structure, AI music videos want emotion. But the two will intertwine, but it'll find its own road. So that's it, really. I just wanted to share the approach I take to putting together. I mean, I use LLMs and online ones and free versions pretty much every project, because it will politely tell you the things you're missing. It's an encyclopedia of knowledge, and you don't have to take on what it says. And it's just a really good way to just bounce your idea off something that you won't be biased like a human in quite the same way. That'll do for now, I think. Yeah, that'll do for now.